Good evening, everybody. Welcome into another YouTube live show. This is going to be a fun one. I can just tell you that right off the bat. I have been itching to get after this one. Thank you for waiting patiently until 8:30 tonight. A little bit of a late start, but that's okay because I'm telling you, my friends, this is great. The vibes today have been immaculate. We've got Nick Saban and the SEC backpedaling because the Big 12 has come in aggressively and appears to now have a real seat at the table as to how the future of college athletics is going to be decided. Meanwhile, at the same time, a pretty bombshelly Ross Dellinger report shows that the ACC, for one, is fighting like hell back against the SEC and the Big Ten. And now looks like we could have a real struggle between ACC, Big 12, and Notre Dame, and then the Power Two as far as what is going to happen with the next iteration of the college football playoff. So, man, I tell you what, it felt today like it's just this we're not going to take it moment, like this vibe, this energy of like we're not going to take it from everybody outside of the Big Ten and the SEC pushing back now. And the last couple weeks, frankly, friends, have just given me a little bit more hope and optimism about where this is going. I am not so naive as to say that I think everything is fine and everybody is saved. Everybody in the Big 12 and ACC has a life raft. Never would I say such a thing. I am not naive. So commenters, before you start going down that road, because I know the title of this video and the thumbnail will get SEC fans in here. I am well aware of your football prowess. I'm well aware of some of the realities here. But when we're talking about getting Congress involved, perhaps the president involved, and the Big 12 now has a big seat at the table, and we see the way Nick Saban is now handling this, while the ACC is gearing up for a major fight here about what's going to happen with the playoff. I love it all. I love it all. I'm here for it. We're going to break it down tonight on the show. I will start by just getting into the Ross Dellinger report, what all is going on there, and what it says about what could happen with the future of the college football playoff, i.e. the Big 12 and ACC using this kind of as a bargaining chip. Using as a bargaining chip, something I told you that they should use as a bargaining chip pretty recently, just last week. But also we're going to break down this Nick Saban thing. To me, the Saban thing is the most interesting of the two. I do think that we've got to start with the Dellinger article, but we need to get into Nick Saban pretty quickly. Also, I mean, stuff that would typically be great fodder for a show here in, what is this, mid-May? What would typically be great fodder for a show in mid-May is the over-unders that we got, what it says about each conference, playing into the Big 12 stereotype. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. And, you know, of course, we got some fan bases with feathers ruffled a little bit. Plus, BYU has hired a new athletic director, which seems to be a somewhat controversial hire, just judging by the Twitter mentions of mine and others. The BYU fan base, a little bit split on that. I have some definitive thoughts there. So we'll talk about that too. Appreciate everybody who's here. Fill up the chat. If you want to make sure your question or comment makes it on tonight, you can click the $ below the chat box in order to submit a super chat, which guarantees that your chat gets read on the show tonight. Appreciate everybody who does that and supports the channel that way. You can also just like the video and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. That is totally free, costs you nothing, and is another great way to support everything that I'm doing here. Couldn't do it without all the guys supporting that way. You should also hop in, open for business, man. It's been blowing up. The Big 12 newsletter, free to your inbox twice a week. I take the big picture college football stories, break them down as to what it means for the Big 12, and keep you updated on the minutia of the league as well. Cost you $0. OFBnews.com to get signed up for that. It's OFBnews.com, or click the link in the description of this video. A couple ways to do that. And anybody who supports that way, I much appreciate it. We've got almost 4,000 subscribers now to the newsletter, as that has really been moving. Last way to get in touch here, if you're not able to catch the show live, you can do so on Venmo. It is just John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. You can leave a question or comment on Venmo at John-Kurtz-4 with your donation. And I will kick off the next show with it, just like I am for my guy, Brian. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate you. Brian says, hi, John. I would love to get us better TV partners, us being the Big 12, but it could harm us since ESPN and Fox have so much influence over college football playoff rankings and berths. So that would give them less interest in the Big 12 each year. Any future government oversight should require equal network influence. Go Cougs. Well, I appreciate that, Brian. Yeah, look, ESPN Fox is definitely where you want to be. I do think that is 100% smart business because you are correct. They control so much of this. And it's something that was a big part of why the Pac-12 wound up disintegrating the way that it did, because there were some doubts among many other things about how that Apple deal was going to work. But if you're taking yourself willingly away from having a bunch of ESPN and or Fox coverage, not necessarily the best for your league. As far as future government oversight, that's where, Brian, what you want to push for is Project Rudy. And I'm going to keep shouting it from the mountaintops. I know not everybody loves that. And certainly the SEC and Big Ten are not going to love that. But I will continue to stand for Project Rudy, which that's where everybody's going to pool their rights together. You'd have the top 70 teams in college football or college athletics pooling all their rights together, and then you would sell that to the different networks. So it would be like the NFL, right? I don't know if it would be that one 10-team division would have their games on Fox and the other on ESPN, but sort of the way you think of AFC, NFC, you've got Fox, CBS, and then, ESPN dipping in for Monday Night Football, all these different networks. That's also, by the way, how you make the most money. If you want to maximize money, you get a bunch of different bidders pulling off different pieces of it. That's how you can maximize the money that's going there. And Project Rudy says there would be $1 billion plus per year involved in that. So $1 billion plus per year extra on top of what people are making right now. So fair points, Brian. Appreciate you there. I don't, better TV partners than Fox ESPN. I don't know that. I mean, Fox ESPN, I think I get why people don't trust them, back to the tortious interference days in the Big 12, which was about 4 years ago. We're getting close to the 4-year anniversary of that, by the way. Wasn't that long ago. So I get having somewhat of a lack of trust there. I know people have their frustrations with ESPN Plus. I would point out that there are plenty of other streaming games that happen. The Big Ten has to go on Peacock and people get upset about that too. So you're not totally alone. I don't think ESPN and Fox is that bad. Somewhat of a necessary evil. I just don't know that there are great other options out there right now. Okay. Well, I see that this has pulled in some SEC folks to the chat. That is great. Fill up the chat, everybody. Welcome in. First, before I get to the Saban stuff, because I see Jason commenting on the Saban stuff, we're going to talk about, I guess this, you know what? Oh, it's Jansen. My apologies, Jansen. That was not intentional. Let's talk about this because Jansen says it's going to be 4-4-2-2-1-3. Well, what the ACC and the Big 12 now are very sternly pushing for, and Notre Dame, is for this to not be 4-4-2-2-1-3. The idea would be it would be 4-4-3-3-1, and that one would be reserved for Notre Dame, possibly somebody else if not. So here's what we got, Jansen. You might want to take this up with Ross Dellinger. It's a Ross Dellinger story here. Okay. The Big 12 and the SEC, or rather, start that again. The Big 12 and the ACC are actually sticking up for themselves against the Big 10 and the SEC. And they're using the same bargaining chip that I told you guys about just last week. They're not going to let the Power 2 just ram through these 4 auto bids like I think most of us assumed that they would. The question is, of course, will it work? Will that work? Let's find out. Let's find out, friends. Okay. So here, I'm going to read you some excerpts from Ross Dellinger's article. A lot of this is coming from ACC meetings, which just happened this week. They have a very defiant attitude, man. There are some quotes. There are some bars, as the kids would say. There are some bars to come out of the mouths of ACC coaches and administrators. I got to hand it to them. I am impressed. I am impressed. I've never been all that impressed with Jim Phillips and company, but the ACC, I like what you're doing here. So, talking about the playoff structure, Dellinger says the divide among the 4 leagues does not exist in the number of teams. There is consensus in moving from 12 to 16. Okay, you got that? Everybody get 14 out of your head. Looks like everybody's cool with moving to 16. However, Dellinger says the rub is with the number of automatic qualifying spots for each conference. Leaders at the Big 12 and ACC want more than just 2 automatic spots. Okay. That's where it starts to get spicy, man. I came on and told you, hey, two spots might be something you'd want to sign up for. Now, I get why the ACC would be more defiant about this right now because they just had a year where Miami would certainly argue they should have had 3 teams in the playoff. And between like Clemson, Miami, Georgia Tech, Florida State, Louisville, like they've got a pretty good crop of schools this year. Perhaps you could argue that they'll be in the running for 3 bids this season as well. For the Big 12, unfortunately, even if this were just 1 through 16, you would have had just 1 bid last year because BYU finished 17th in the college football playoff rankings, just outside that final spot. Dellinger goes on to say, leaders at the Big 12 and the ACC want more than just 2 automatic spots. Negotiations among the 4 power conference commissioners have produced disagreement. Discord lingers over the amount of automatic qualifiers for each conference. Word from ACC Media Days on all of this. We got one athletic director. Didn't put his name to this. A lot of the coaches did, so credit to the coaches. We'll get to their quotes in a second. But, quote, no one likes it, says one athletic director. Well, now that is a pretty obvious quote. Like, yes, of course, nobody in the Big 12 or the ACC is going to like the idea of 4 automatic bids for the Big 10 and the SEC every single year. I mean, virtually nobody that's not a Big 10 or an SEC fan likes the idea of that. And I would imagine even that wouldn't pull at 100% in the Big 10 or the SEC, right? It's not an incredibly popular idea. It's just one that we all assumed would be rammed through because, well, it could be. Dellinger says coaches spoke against it, recommending to athletic administrators that they push for the ACC to get 3 automatic qualifiers. 3. And the coaches were not shy about saying this publicly with their name slapped on it. This is where the ACC is ready for a fight. They are ready for a fight. Again, I will give him credit. I always took Jim Phillips as being kind of passive, but everybody under him seems to be ready. This is equivalent of squaring up, man. They've got the Dukes up. Quote, we are fighting for our spots, NC State head coach Dave Doran told Yahoo Sports. We believe we deserve 3 automatic qualifiers as a minimum. As a minimum. How about that? Dave Doran, who, by the way, did not have a very good year last year, but Dave Doran, who has been a pretty good coach at NC State, says, why stop at 3? Why stop at 3? We need at least 3 automatic spots. That is the minimum that we should get to satisfy us right now. Boy, we expanded to 18. We expanded to 20. Dave Doran thinks the ACC might even need 4. Here's Pat Narduzzi. Quote, I think you should earn your way in. It comes down to the image of the Big 10 and SEC and where they are, and there's a lack of respect for the ACC. I don't like it. Pat Narduzzi, not afraid. I mean, he's certainly a crusty guy. I can imagine that he's not thrilled about this. Actually, I said it was all coaches. Here is North Carolina AD Bubba Cunningham. My apologies to Bubba Cunningham at North Carolina. He's got a lot on his plate right now, if you've been paying attention to the Bill Belichick headlines lately. But Bubba Cunningham says, quote, I don't understand why you'd ask for a guaranteed spot other than 1 automatic for conference champions. Again, to me, the significance of this is not even so much in what they are saying, but that it's not all just anonymous coach, anonymous athletic director. They are willing to put their name behind it, gearing up for a public fight on this. Let's drag this through the mud as much as we can. Maybe some of this, if you want to be really cynical, would be saying it's kind of the equivalent in politics where they're like, well, we don't have the votes, we know, to stop this, but we're going to make sure it goes to a vote so that you have to put your name behind it. You have to publicly put your name behind it. Publicly, Greg Sankey, say something about it, talk more about it publicly, try to justify this more so that you can't just kind of weasel your way through making this happen and let everybody forget. We're going to make it a big thing. So public opinion, which we know is already kind of behind us, will continue to hit you guys and your credibility will take hits and we'll just make it a mess for you. It could just be that as the best case scenario. We shall see. But I mean, the best quote is obviously Dave Doran saying 3 automatic qualifiers as a minimum is great. I mean, look, I don't care whatever. Again, the justification last year, they were very close. The ACC was very close to landing 3 in the playoff anyway, as it is. If it were going to 16, Miami would have been in. You would have had a third. They would have had 3 in there. So saying they deserve a minimum of 3 actually is not that crazy based on what happened last year. So if the ACC wants to posture like that, go do your thing. Go do your thing. I I just thought, now, if I'm the Big 12 or the ACC, I had thought that there would be some real risk here. I do want to talk about that. Some risk in pushing too hard on this, and the Big 10 and the SEC just saying, well, forget you guys. Like, what, Dave Dorn, what do I care about you? You won like 5 games last year. You lost your best player to Texas A&M. Why do I care about you being yappy and saying you deserve at least 3 bids? We're just going to go do our own thing. We'll take our ball and go home. But the tides around all of this and the presidential commission and Cody Campbell getting so involved, I just feel the energy, the vibe shift right now is a little bit more in favor of the Big 12 and ACC pushing on this and feeling more emboldened to push on this, okay? Here's more from Dellinger. Big 12 and ACC officials are expected to propose alternate models to the Big 10 and SEC, the 2 conferences that hold the authority. Contacted by Yahoo Sports on Wednesday, Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark declined comment on any new proposals. Meanwhile, some here at ACC spring meetings expressed their frustration over any format that predetermines automatic qualifiers. The ACC and Big 12. Now, here's a key, okay? It's not just the ACC and Big 12 here. The ACC and Big 12 are not alone in their pushback to the format. Notre Dame athletic director Pete Bavacqua, one of 11 members of the College Football Playoff Governance Board, has spoken against the format within meetings. Notre Dame's against it, guys. Notre Dame hates it. Big 12 hates it. ACC hates it. General population hates it. You know who like it. It is just the Big 10 and the SEC. That is it. Nobody else likes this idea at all. Nobody else likes this idea at all. Bavacqua also declined comment. So Yormark, Bavacqua trying to be a little bit more quiet. It would probably be different if you had like Big 12 meetings going on right now and a bunch of people around there. I'd imagine some coaches, some people would probably want to pop off. A little bit different attitude from those corners. SMU head coach Rhett Lashley used a basketball analogy, okay, citing the SEC's record of 14 teams in the NCAA tournament this past year. Quote, if we guaranteed spots based on the past, just look at basketball the last 5 years. 6 years ago or so, the SEC gets 3 or 4 teams in. And now this year they set a record. But if this year's NCAA tournament was predicted on 5 years ago, 10 of their schools would have been left out. It's kind of hard to limit the future based on the past. I mean, that's pretty simple logic. If you were doing this in any way from scratch, that makes a lot of sense. And it seems pretty ridiculous to just predetermine all of these spots like that. It is hard to argue with that if you are Rhett Lashley. Now, another risk here, in addition to just the Big 10 or the SEC saying, we'll take our ball and go home, is you also do risk them saying, okay, fine, we'll just abandon this, rank everybody 1 through 16, and we'll see who gets in. I mean, that's not going to be good news for the group of 5. I would still say last year was a very good year for the ACC in terms of just sheer numbers trying to get somebody into the playoff. You got to be careful what you wish for, though. You got to be careful what you wish for. That it could tilt the opposite way very quickly, where you don't wind up with the strength of SMU, Clemson, Miami all being right there, and you could be 1 bordering on maybe 2, like the Big 12 pretty quickly if you are the ACC. So I do think there is some inherent risk in that, and that's why I still stand by and told you, like, in a lot of ways, I do genuinely feel like signing on the dotted line, just taking your 2 bids might be the best way to go. Okay. Because the SEC and Big 10 do appear to have the cards now, but I will use that more in the sense of appear to have all the cards and all the leverage. That could be changing here. That could be changing if legitimate political pressure and public backlash can make a difference. Let me show you an example of this. Okay. Here is something that happened just this week. Let's bring up this tweet from a politician, not something that I will do very often here on the show, but Brendan Boyle, he quote tweeted Ross Dellinger talking about the Big 10 SEC pushing for their 4 automatic bids. And he said, the next time the Big 10 or SEC wants to meet with me about NIL, they better be prepared to first explain to me how they justify trying to rig the college football playoff. And then he hits him with the hashtag, man. Look at the hashtag, guys. Hashtag greed with a capital G. A capital G. It's a congressman from Pennsylvania. A capital G greed from Congressman Brendan Boyle. And that was actually how Dellinger led his article, was talking about that comment. So, guys, there is legitimate pressure coming at the SEC and Big Ten and just everybody in the college sports world about how things are being done. And it's not all like the status quo right now is what's best for the SEC and Big Ten. The more that outside entities start to get involved and the ACC starts to put public pressure and you're forced to defend what is honestly kind of an undefendable decision here to go with 4 auto bids for each conference, the more public pressure and perhaps political pressure will start to build. And now the Big 12 has a big seat at the table with Cody Campbell being a co-chair of this presidential commission. And we'll talk more about this. Nick Saban seems trying to get rid of that almost at this point. Even if he does, I mean, Cody Campbell's a guy that he's got a line to President Trump. Full stop. Like that is there. Obviously, so does Nick Saban, but this is a guy with influence. He's a billionaire, speaks the language of the president. President seems to be interested here. If he's interested in creating a committee, Big 12's got some influence. Cody Campbell gets mentioned in this Dellinger article. It says, in fact, Cody Campbell, the leader of a newly minted and yet to be announced presidential commission, is a Big 12 supporter and sits on the league's alumni council. The billionaire businessman is the chair of the Texas Tech Board of Regents, a friend to your Mark, and has a direct line to President Donald Trump. So don't take my word for it. Ross Dellinger, the best reporter in college sports right now, says that he's got a direct line to President Donald Trump. That's legitimate influence for the Big 12. So all the big guns are coming out here. And it does feel to me like it's kind of this moment of, I said earlier, like a we're not going to take it moment, but also like everybody realizes this is a big, important crescendo everything is building to here. Like, what are we going to allow the Big Ten and the SEC to do? And how much toothpaste will they be pushing out of a tube here if they do the auto bids to the college football playoff? And if we let Nick Saban move forward with his idea of wanting to cut this off at only 40 teams, how much toothpaste is going to come out of the tube that can't be put back? We need to speak up. We can't let this happen. And we seem to have an administration right now in the White House that has interest in taking on some projects of this ilk. So go for it. That's really the vibe that I'm getting right now. How about this? This is another paragraph from the Dellinger story. Whether Campbell or the commission gets involved, this is Cody Campbell, whether Cody Campbell or the commission get involved in the playoff discussions remains unclear. One source close to Campbell told Yahoo Sports he is not in favor of the Big Ten and SEC's proposed format. I mean, of course he's not. But the fact that it's even brought up, whether Cody Campbell gets involved in the playoff discussions remains unclear. Cody Campbell apparently maybe now has enough influence to get involved in the playoff discussions. Guys, this is a very important figure. This is not, I know he's bankrolling Texas Tech, and you might have to separate your feelings about that versus what he can do for the sake of the league and schools in the Big 12. But it's a very important guy, man. Very important guy with some real influence. Now, there's some other details here. I don't find these to be as important to the big picture today, but if you are curious, the leverage piece of this, I mentioned the Big 12 and the ACC are using the leverage that I said they should use. That leverage is what happens this year for the playoff. And Dellinger says, if an agreement is reached on a format for 2026 and beyond, it may pave the way to move what's termed a straight seeding format for the 2025 playoff. So what he's saying there is, if the Big 12 and the ACC actually force some change for the 2026 and beyond playoff, it would come at the expense of, okay, guys, fine, then you don't get your automatic buys this year in the 2025 playoff. We're just going to straight seed it in the top 4 seeds, get the buys, which is a very much worthwhile negotiation if you can do it. If you can pull it off for the Big 12 or the ACC, if that gets you an extra auto bid, if that gets the Big 12 or Big 10 and SEC to get rid of their auto bids, whatever it might be, that's a worthwhile bargaining chip and one that you should be using theoretically. So I like that. There's also a lot of talk about how they would have to structure things. Playoff would have to change. You'd have at 16, you'd have play-in games, 13 v 16, 14 v 15. That would take place the week of Army-Navy. That would set up who's then in the playoff. You'd have double buys for the top seeds. A lot of structural stuff there. But to me, that's not nearly the most interesting piece of all of this. So anyway, guys, we haven't even gotten to the Nick Saban part of this yet. Okay, we haven't even gotten to the Nick Saban part of this yet, which is the main reason for the tagline, the title of this video, and the main crux of the hook today. But let's say hello to Jeff. How's the jawline working for you? Is it on fleek? Jeff, I don't think the kids say on fleek anymore. Now, I'm by no means a kid now that I'm in my mid 30s. Okay. But I don't think on fleek is what they are saying. So I appreciate the donation. I don't know what else to tell you as far as like what it is, because I start to say some of these things and I'm like, oh, would they say that? Would they say that? And I don't, at the risk of getting clipped and, sent around Twitter for eternity, I don't know that I can offer you a possible other solution, but, it's doing okay, feeling okay today. So thank you, Jeff. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your support of the channel, my friend. If you want to be like Jeff, you can click the $ below the chat box to submit a super chat. It guarantees that your question or comment will make it and just supports the work that I'm doing here on this channel. Make sure you subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. You can do so at ofbnews.com. That's ofbnews.com. Or click the link in the description of the video. I break down the big stories in college football like this, tell you what it means for the Big 12, and get you up to date on all the minutia, the little news and notes throughout the week in the Big 12. It's totally free. We've got almost 4,000 Big 12 fans already subscribed. Like the video, subscribe to the channel as well. Very easy, everybody who is here. Very easy ways to support. Okay, I don't like to get conspiratorial on here very often. That's not my deal. I'm not here to be a conspiracy guy. But, man, Nick Saban's comments on the Paul Feinbaum show have me in that mode a little bit. Okay, they do. Is he feeling threatened? Is Nick Saban feeling threatened? Is the SEC feeling threatened that they want to get this out there as their public message? Threatened by Cody Campbell and the Big 12 and ACC's push for equality? Sure feels that way to me. It sure feels that way to me. Call me conspiratorial if you want. I'm sure the SEC fans in the comments will. That's fine. But let's get into those comments from Nick Saban on the Paul Feinbaum show, okay? Which, first of all, let's talk about the figures involved here and the platform that's involved. That is the official mouthpiece of the SEC. I'm not even just speaking about Paul Feinbaum himself, but that show, that is the conscience of the SEC, the mouthpiece of the league. If something important needs to happen or be said, you're going to see that messaging pushed there. Okay? 100%. Now let's think about the two people involved. Obviously, Paul Feinbaum, but then Nick Saban. Nick Saban, another guy. If there's some message that needs to be pushed within SEC circles, Nick Saban is somebody who can very, very much be heavily involved in that as the most respected name in SEC coaching history and college football coaching history. Okay. So the first thing that happens here, the first part of this I'm going to read you, is how Saban describes what led to the idea of this presidential commission on college athletics coming together. And this is where Saban is going to start to really downplay this and make this seem like not a very big deal. Okay. So here's what Saban says, the detail of what happened. Which, by I guess, refresher for everybody not caught up to speed on this here, broke last week that there would be a presidential commission on college sports to discuss all the big picture issues in the future. NIL, transfer portal, employees, non-employees, how many teams are going to be involved in the future of the sport, all these different things, TV rights. And Cody Campbell would be one of the co-chairs, Texas Tech mega booster, as well as Nick Saban. Okay. So Saban says, quote, I think, first of all, the way all this started when President Trump spoke at the commencement at Alabama, he said, all my friends are saying college football is really messed up. Let's get together so we can figure out how to fix it. So that's how all this got started, Saban added. But I really don't want to get into the implementation of what I would do. Okay. So Saban is sort of just like, hey, it was an offhand comment by President Trump, who was like, people tell me college football is kind of messed up. You should help fix it. You seem like you'd be somebody well suited for that. Let's do it. I can already see him starting to lay the groundwork for what I know is coming with the rest of the comments. Okay. Saban really seems trying to downplay this. The other thing is, yes, there is an element of like, look, my perception is this isn't kind of how things seem to happen in the world of the current administration, and the president can be on a whim. A special project like this takes his attention up and comes into view. And it doesn't take like a whole bunch of research beforehand or whatever. It can be on a whim, and then bam, here we're off and running. So I do think it's believable, even though it also feels like Saban is really trying to downplay this. But this is where I just had to start to laugh, man. Saban's already, he's trying to walk this back. He's trying to walk this back already. Saban says, first of all, I don't know a lot about the commission. Secondly, I'm not sure we really need a commission. Okay, Nick Saban, czar of college football, greatest coach of all time, co-chairing a presidential committee, now saying, well, wait, hey, we don't really need that. Maybe it started with a conversation at the commencement, and it's like, hey, Nick, you could lead this thing. Like, okay, that sounds good. SEC at the forefront, leading the charge here. Yeah, that would be great. That's awesome. That sounds great. Let's do it. Wait, whoa. Saban starts reading reports here. Like, Ross Dellinger says, what? Cody Campbell? Who? Texas Tech? Multi-billionaire? That's the guy I'm going to be leading the charge with? Wait. Hold on. Let me read the Federalist here. What is Cody Campbell saying about this? Wait, hold on. Like, we should all pool our media rights together and not just keep the SEC with a TV deal that's going to lap the rest of the field other than maybe the Big Ten. Whoa, we don't need to be doing that. What are these radical ideas here coming from Cody Campbell? You see where I'm going with this, right? Here's the rest of the Saban quote. Quote, I think that a lot of people know exactly what the issues are in college football and exactly what we need to do to fix them. The key to the drill is getting people together so we can move it forward. I think there's a ton of disagreement about that, Nick Saban. I don't think there is some consensus of exactly what we need to do to move forward. Maybe there is in Big Ten and SEC land, where, again, you want to keep these unbelievable competitive advantages. You want to maintain the status quo, quite obviously, even though it's not in the best interest of everybody in the sport moving forward. I think it's a little more complicated than that, Nick, and that's why it might require a committee. And if we're going to do a committee, you guys aren't going to be the only ones leading the thing, okay? Now, Saban was quick to make sure everybody knows. He says, quote, I'm not opposed to players making money. I don't want anybody to think that. I just think the system we're using, the way it's going right now, is not sustainable and probably not in the best interest of student athletes across the board or the game itself. I think we need to protect the brand and the competitive advantages and disadvantages that are being created right now, and I think we can fix all that. But I think we know how to do it. And not just me, but a lot of people. We just have to get everybody together to do it. Okay, well, if we're getting everybody together to do it, Nick, it's not going to be all people from the SEC. Hate to break it to you once again. Hate to break it to you. I think the first thing, here's Saban continuing on. I think the first thing is everybody's got a different state law, which creates advantages and disadvantages. Everybody is trying to create advantages. So we probably need an interstate commerce type that gets it all going there. I don't think it's in the best interest of the players to necessarily be employees. And I think authentic name, image, and likeness is good for the players, but I don't think pay for play is necessarily what we want. Okay. A lot of what he has laid out there is very much what Cody Campbell laid out in those pieces that I mentioned that he wrote in the Federalist, minus one key thing. And that is the Sports Broadcasting Act, which is what Cody Campbell said college football needs to be in on. It's what allowed the NFL to sell its TV rights pooled together jointly the way that they did. And that's what Campbell's pitch would be, is that college football needs to do. Then basically you're going down the Project Rudy route. That's not an SEC stance. They're not going to want that at all. As Josh Pate said the other day, things of that nature would not be good for the Big Ten or the SEC, but I'm paraphrasing from him. He said if they should do it if it's for the greater good of the sport. They should just move forward for that. So, okay, man. I mean, it really feels to me like this is Saban backing off a bit because, like, man, let's not get too crazy here. Let's not get too crazy with these outrageous ideas from this wild old liberal Cody Campbell with these wild liberal commie ideas about, 70 teams instead of 40 and not making this just the Big Ten and the SEC pick out like 3 more teams apiece and then just go do it and cut everybody else off. We don't need to let these crazy ideas in here. Look at the influence the Big 12 is starting to gather here. I'm just saying, guys. Cody Campbell is, I really, truly believe, and I'm working on trying to get him at some point. We'll see if it happens. Cody Campbell, I think, is such a seminal figure right now for the Big 12 and ACC, basically just everybody outside of the Power 2 and even for the Power 2. I tell you all the time, I think structuring things like that long-term are in the best interest of everybody, even if it doesn't seem like that in the short term for the Big 10 or the SEC. So we've reached a point of critical mass. Cody Campbell is applying some pressure just by simply being there. We're seeing now congressmen applying some pressure. A presidential committee, will start to get the juices flowing, applying some pressure. And the ACC is doing their damnedest from ACC meetings to apply some pressure and put more public pressure on people to call out what is happening right now in the SEC and the Big 10. That's your overarching theme from today, man. That's your overarching theme from today and what all is happening. So I'm going to move on, but if you have questions or comments about it, you can hit me up in the chat. Click the $ below the chat box if you want to submit a super chat and make sure your question or comment makes it in there. Would appreciate that. Subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com, or click the link in the description of the video to do that. Like and subscribe, like the video, subscribe to the channel. All of that stuff really helps. And I appreciate that. This is an interesting thought, Bennett. I'm going to bring this up. It's an interesting thought. It feels like Cody Campbell will get Texas Tech and the SEC regardless if there is a commission or not. I definitely see why you would say that. Texas Tech would probably need to start proving it actually on the field, like backing up the money spend for that to have any shot. But I did the math for you the other day. Saban said 40 teams is what he would cut it off at. And I did the math for you on that. You've already got 34 between the Big 10 and the SEC. You would add Notre Dame, that's 35. If you're going then to the ACC, North Carolina is going to make it. Florida State's going to make it. Miami's going to make it. That's 38. Who else did I have from the ACC included in that group? Because I feel like I'm skipping somebody there. Clemson. I didn't get Clemson in there, did I? So you're at like 39. There's like one spot left. After taking the best of the ACC and Notre Dame to go with the two conferences already, there's like one spot left. So I guess if you want to campaign for, Texas Tech would get it because Cody Campbell would have the influence for that one last spot. I don't think that's any kind of surefire anything. And that would be something that the SEC is going to have actual decision-making power over. They might be sick of Cody Campbell by that point. I don't think that would be any kind of certainty. And I think he is somebody that is going to truly fight for the good of the sport overall. All right, let me make sure I got these Big 12 over-unders pulled up before I actually go into this. I forgot about that critical piece of this, so you guys can see that. But we got from Circa today some Big 12 over-unders. It is that time of year. We got them for every conference, which I am going to speak to what it looks like for every conference there also. But as far as the Big 12 goes, okay. So Vegas, in this case, Circa, is really holding up the same stereotype everybody seems to have about the Big 12. Is that a bad thing, though? I don't think it's actually as bad as you might believe. And there are a couple Big 12 schools that with these numbers are going to feel disrespected. Should they? We'll dive into all that here, okay? So Circa dropped their Big 12 over-unders. It's wild and crazy, as you might expect with the Big 12. Let's go share the screen. Here's your Big 12 regular season over-under win totals. Let me just do that. Okay. So Arizona State, K-State, Texas Tech at the top, 8.5 apiece. Baylor, BYU, Iowa State, Kansas, Utah, the next group there. That's a pretty healthy group of 8 teams at the top. And then Houston, TCU, Cincinnati, Colorado, Arizona, UCF, Oklahoma State, West Virginia. Everybody is separated by 3.5 games. That is crazy. If you need some context for that, the Big Ten gap from top to bottom is 7.5. 7.5. Here we've got 3.5. Nobody with more than 8.5 regular season wins. Take note of that. This is regular season, not overall. Nobody worse than 5. Nobody better than 8.5, man. If that is not the Big 12 stereotype to a T, I don't know what is. It is that this is a conference of teams that are very similar to each other. There will be a ton of parity, and it's really, really, really hard to predict. I think actually the over-unders for all of these leagues really played to their stereotypes. The Big Ten had 3 teams with 10-plus wins projected, so great at the top. But then they had a bunch of teams, 7 teams below 6 wins, a bunch of crap at the bottom. And there's a 7.5 win difference from top to bottom. That's what the Big Ten is. We call it a stereotype. That one certainly exists for a reason in the Big Ten. Great at the top, crap at the bottom. The SEC is very Big 12-y. You've got 12 teams between 7 and 9.5 wins in the SEC. 12 teams between 7 and 9.5 wins in the SEC. That's pretty crazy. And it just shows unbelievable depth in the conference, but maybe like last year, not as elite at the very tippy top as they have been in the past. We'll see how that plays out this year. Quarterback play, not quite as great in the SEC as it has been in years past. Will that be enough to get them over the top and be elite? I don't know. The ACC honestly looks pretty solid based on all of this. I think I actually have. Maybe we can pull up the ACC. Yes, we can. Here's your ACC over-under win totals. Notre Dame included here, which, you can basically scratch that off. But Clemson, Miami, Louisville, SMU, Georgia Tech, North Carolina, Florida State, it should be a pretty solid year in the ACC. This probably gives you more context as to why they're fighting really hard for 3 playoff spots. Looks like it could be a pretty strong year for the conference. So it enforces all of these stereotypes. But for the Big 12, the stereotype, in some ways, I know Big 12 fans can get a little defensive of, I guess I would say. This always happens. Sorry, guys. Okay. Because you look at it, and I saw some of the Twitter responses of people being like, it's just mediocrity, or we, confusing parity with mediocrity and all of this. And for the Big 12, it's not that it doesn't have to be mediocrity. It can be that these are a bunch of very similarly matched teams, and the team that comes out of that is actually going to be pretty damn good. Like last year when it was Arizona State and they were 1 play away from beating Texas to go to the semifinal of the college football playoff. It doesn't have to mean that. It just means that there are a lot of teams in a very similar spot. And when you throw all that together, it's almost kind of foolish to go out on a limb too much with any team. And so you wind up with a bunch of teams bunched really close together so that you can't be too wrong, right? And it will also bring a lot of action on both sides of the line here, which is ultimately what Vegas is trying to do. So you'll get some of this from people reacting to this and saying, the Big 12 sucks. It's just all mediocrity. You don't have to listen to that. Arizona State's over. What would Arizona State's over under have been last year? Probably 4.5. 1 play away, 4th and 13 stop away from beating Texas in the playoff. So it doesn't mean that. It just means you're going to have a wild conference once again this year, is what that really, really appears. Okay. So I definitely saw some Big 12 fan bases upset on Twitter today about this. I'll pull up the Big 12 for you again so that we can go through whose feathers got ruffled the most. I can tell you there was one fan base I would point out for that, and maybe rightfully so. I'll give them some credit for that. BYU is who I would say I saw the most pushback from on Twitter today. BYU at 7.5. Now, on the surface, I would look at that and say, well, I can understand most people thinking that there will be some level of regression last year, that BYU felt like they definitely got some fortune. I won't call it total luck, but a bit of good fortune at multiple times throughout last year. And they don't have, I think, what people believe is a tier 1 elite quarterback. We'll see. Maybe Jake Retzloff proves me wrong. I don't think he was last year. And so, hey, there will be some regression. But BYU fans, I know, 1, believe in the program, and then 2 would say, dude, look at the schedule. And the schedule, I must admit, is a good counterpoint on that, because the non-conference schedule is very manageable for BYU. They've got Stanford and East Carolina. It is a road trip at East Carolina, but Stanford and East Carolina should be pretty manageable. And then they don't play K-State, Arizona State, or Baylor, who would all 3 be in my tier 1 of Big 12 schools for next year. They do play Cincinnati, UCF, Arizona, West Virginia. So look at that. Look at where these schools are here. Arizona, K-State, Baylor, three of the, I guess you can really say three of the top 8, but two of the top 3, and then Baylor, who's in that next group. And then you're missing all the teams there at the bottom. Cincy, UCF, Arizona, West Virginia. So it's a pretty favorable schedule for BYU. When I started to dive into the schedule, I was like, maybe we could say BYU's got like an 8-win floor. I still would probably say like 7-win floor, so I can see how you would straddle this number. But I understand why BYU fans would be a bit tweaked by this. I do. I do get that. Also saw a lot of Cincy fans. I saw a lot of Cincy fans really fired up about this, that they do not appreciate their over-under win total being just 6. And I got to be honest, Cincinnati is just in a position, nothing against you guys, Cincinnati fans. Cincy's just in a position where they need to prove it to me. It's kind of like all this Texas Tech hype and can they win the Big 12? Like, I got to see it. I've been burned in the past by predicting that. Cincy has not done a whole lot since entering the conference. I just need to see it. I do like Brendan Sorsby. I think he's a pretty good quarterback. But man, I did a bad taste in my mouth from the way that season tanked last year at the end. I got to see it. Go prove me wrong, Cincy. Go prove me wrong. Colorado fans also, but Colorado fans going to Colorado fan. Like the internet Colorado fans they're going to do their thing. Maybe Colorado at 6 is a little harsh, but you're replacing a Heisman Trophy winner and a quarterback who got drafted that I really do think was a miracle worker, at least with that offensive line. Say what you will about where he got drafted and all that. But man. Colorado fans also still upset by this. So that's what we got for Big 12 over-unders. I will also make this point here. A couple of things that I like. The Baylor, I told you I'm high on Baylor. I have them in my tier 1 in the Big 12 by virtue of those over-unders. They're not in tier 1 in the Big 12, so I'd probably take the over on Baylor. I do like that. Sawyer Robertson, awesome quarterback. I think they've got maybe the best quarterback running back combo in the entire conference. I would hope and think Dave Aranda is going to put together a pretty solid defense. And then TCU. So when I saw TCU initially at 6.5, I was like, oh, that is the one. That is the one. You need to absolutely hammer TCU over 6.5 because they will be better than that. Sneakily won 9 games last year. Obviously, 3 years ago, they played for a national championship. Much as you might think Sonny Dykes is a little bit average as a head coach, and I tend to, if you take your feelings out of it and just look at the facts there, that would be one to hammer. But then you start looking at TCU's schedule. That's the only tricky thing here, man. They've got at North Carolina. I mean, who knows exactly what's that's going to be. The one Pablo Torre report / speculation that he had this week was that maybe Bill Belichick doesn't even coach a game in North Carolina with everything that's going on with his girlfriend. But they've got at North Carolina. They've got SMU, who spanked them last year. That's another non-con game, playoff team in their non-con schedule. And then on the conference schedule, they have road trips at K-State, Arizona State, and BYU. I mean, that seems really tough. So even though program that's like they're winning 9 games a year under Sonny Dykes, Josh Hoover might be the most underrated player in the league. Like, I think he's just a really good quarterback that doesn't get talked about enough because they flew under the radar last year. The schedule does throw a wrench into it, but I still think, man, I think they're getting to 7 or 8. I think TCU's getting to 7 or 8. That's another one I would really probably hit the over on. So, hey, just a couple suggestions there. I am no expert. That is not investment advice, but those are my thoughts on the numbers that we got so far this year, or so far, whatever, that we got from Circa today. It's been a long day, guys. Appreciate it. And I see all of you guys with your jokes about Utah in the chat. I'm getting it from both sides now. I now get people telling me I'm a Utah lover, and then I get people telling me I'm a BYU lover. You can't win, you guys. You can't win. The triple light switch. This did make me laugh, Jeremy. Yes. Rest in peace to the old apartment. Rest in peace to the old apartment with the light switches. Okay. I've got one more topic for you tonight. Please do like the video. Please do subscribe to the channel if you have not. Oh, I missed a super chat, didn't I? If you want to submit a super chat, you can do so by clicking the $ below the chat box to make sure your question or comment makes it on tonight. If you're not catching it live, John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo is how you can reach me that way with your question or comment, and I will answer that on the show. Subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. It's ofbnews.com. That's ofbnews.com. And you can get Big 12 news straight to your inbox twice a week. Join nearly 4,000 other Big 12 fans who are. Jeff, in reference to Cody Campbell, is MAGA really going to save the Big 12? Well, and then I guess Presidential Commission, President Trump, all of that. Maybe. We'll see. We'll see. To be determined. We shall see. Appreciate, who was that? Jeff? Appreciate you though, Jeff, for being here and supporting the channel tonight. My last topic, BYU fans. This is mainly for you, but everybody else in the league, this is an important one for you too. BYU is doing some really good things right now. Obviously had a monster year in football and men's basketball, and things appear to be really on the up and up in Provo, and those are programs with really high ceilings because of all the financial support that's there and the global brand and everything that BYU has. So I would encourage you to pay attention here. But BYU fans seem really, really split on this AD hire. Okay. Brian Santiago gets hired. I can understand why. There is some level of faction. There are different factions between the fan base on this, but I think it's a hire deserving of optimism. Okay. I will make you that case here. And first things first, nobody is going to replace Tom Holmoe. Like, that is just, it's an impossible situation to be in. Tom Holmoe is, and I'm not professing to be like a guy who knows him incredibly well or anything like that, but having been around him a couple of times, just, they always say people won't remember what you did or said, but they'll remember how you made them feel. I mean, that is like him to a T. Just such a genuine guy. Always made you feel like $1 million and like you were very important, and just incredible way about him with that. Obviously, to go along with the track record of success that he had. Okay. Getting BYU to the Big 12. Hired Kalani Sitake, Kevin Young, Bronco Mendenhall, Dave Rose. Like a really impressive list of hires that have been made by him. And then he's, oh, by the way, just like most interesting man in the world. Guy who overlapped with Andy Reid at BYU back in his playing days. He coached under Bill Walsh. He was the position coach for Deion Sanders in the NFL. I mean, incredible resume. It's impossible to beat, even if, like Santiago, you are a guy who's been the right-hand man to Tom Holmoe the entire time that he has been there. Okay. There's no real replacing him. And any hire, there's probably going to be some sort of consternation when you're replacing a legend like that. And in general, I would just say, like, the internal hire is never a really sexy one, at least very, very rarely. I'm trying to think, has there ever been a situation where like the internal hire is the really sexy hire that everybody wants? I feel like, that's typically, you're going to get a lot of people who are like, oh, I want the new bright, shiny object. Okay. But I would say this, man, BYU strikes me as a place where, like, going the internal hire route and someone who's been right-hand man for somebody for all these years, BYU is a place where that seems to fit more so than it would at other places. Like, better chance of that being successful at BYU than a lot of other places, because there is a distinct culture that has been built up there, and it breeds a lot of success and just breeds a lot of good things happening and people being able to come up the ranks and kill it, which is not the case at places that would be perhaps less organized, not as united in like overall purpose, which exists there for a lot of reasons at BYU. So I think for that reason, BYU can be a better incubator for talent and for something like this to work. The other thing I've learned just in doing some poking around, just some talking to people in the last 24 hours or so, is that Santiago was just so instrumental in the Kevin Young hire. And I mean, that should be a huge selling point in and of itself. Like, Kevin Young was a monster hire for so many reasons. That was such an impressive hire. And I told you guys here on this channel from the word go on that. I thought that was incredible. I thought BYU upgraded from Mark Pope. I would still rubber stamp that. Both of them had pretty good years this past year, but I still like where the Kevin Young thing is going a little bit more than that. But it wasn't just that. It was the timing of it. Like, it happened so late in the process that, you feared BYU could be in some real trouble. That late in the process, you go out and you find an innovative coach. It's not just that he's a great coach and looks like somebody that could set you up to be winning and winning big for a long time, but that was a pretty innovative hire that now everybody wants to copy. Like, seeing that, hey, the way things are going right now means an NBA type of coach is like, that's the way to do it. That's going to be the way to approach this. And other places are going to want to do the same thing. Yes, very smart, very innovative. And your back was against the wall. You had to make this hire because of the timing. On top of that, you got it right. Just he was a great coach, clearly a successful coach, and has been able to also help equip BYU with tremendous NIL support in basketball. And I know that there's all this controversy, quote unquote controversy, a lot of talk, put it that way, about BYU's NIL prowess, what that means to the overall mission, how people feel about it. But it's clear that with basketball, they've done a really good job with that. You're not getting AJ DeMonsta without it. So if all that has been in a lot of ways spearheaded by him, that seems like a guy who did a pretty good job in positioning himself for this gig, right? If nothing else, makes it more likely you're going to have Kevin Young around for a while, which I'm sure the NBA is going to continue to come after him. Like, it's not going to be a guarantee that he stays there. I'm sure the NBA is looking around like, man, yeah, this guy seems like he can coach. We should go make a run at this. So I think high enough floor just with the basketball program, at least from that standpoint of making this sort of hire. But I don't know. I've seen all the pushback. I've seen the pushback from people who feel like perhaps they've been rubbed the wrong way by him at certain points in time. I would just offer that maybe there's some of this that when you're being held up again against Tom Holmoe as the standard, like that is very hard. That is a very hard standard to achieve. And a lot of people would probably feel like they're not living up to that sort of standard because I think Tom Holmoe is about as good as it gets. So I don't know. All those reasons, it feels to me like a pretty solid hire. I will be interested to see where it goes. I also am asking around, and I'm sure there are some BYU fans out there who would give me names, but in the poking around that I did, I didn't really get like a ton of like, oh, this was the slam dunk hire that we didn't go out and make because we did this. So if there was one guy or a couple of guys that really seemed to be that, maybe I would feel a little bit differently here, but I don't know. Makes sense. Yes, it did seem fairly predictable, but I don't think that's a bad thing. And I think at BYU, you're more well-positioned to have a hire like this work out than in a lot of places across the country. So let me know what you think, though, BYU fans, in the comments. That is totally fine. And let's check in with Bennett here before I get out tonight. Bennett says, hey, I'm not a tech fan, but I'm smart enough to know that money talks and tech checks a lot of boxes if the SEC expands. I'm a Houston Coug fan, which has the number 3 overall recruit right now. Yeah, man, I was reading about him today, Bennett. Great article on CBS Sports for Houston fans. I'll throw it in the newsletter, Open for Business, so you can just subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com. But great article about him. He's coached by Michael Bishop, number 3 player in the country. He is a quarterback. I apologize that I'm forgetting his name right now. But he's coached by Michael Bishop, K-State legend, runner-up for the Heisman in 1998, Davey O'Brien Award winner, as the best quarterback in the country, who had a very similar story where both of them, like everyone wanted him to play receiver. They stuck with it, played quarterback. Obviously, that worked out very well for Bishop. It seems to be working out very well for this kid. Now in an era where people are much more open to the dual threat quarterback than they were at that point when Bishop was coming out of junior college. Bishop was coached by Willie Fritz. Now this kid is signed up to go play, committed to go play for Willie Fritz at Houston. Great article. Really enjoyed it. I will read anything with Michael Bishop on it. He's always been my favorite athlete, my hero as a kid. So very, very cool. Yeah, I mean, I guess money talks. I don't, but what? I mean, they're in the state of Texas, but at this point, the SEC already has Texas and Texas A&M. It's not a massive brand. It does have a pretty big, strong fan base. It does have money. Look, I guess I'll put it to you this way, Bennett. If that money proves to really go out and get Texas Tech into the playoff this year, have them continue to make big pushes and really elevate their status over the next few years, proving that the money will guarantee that success or come close to it, however you want to frame that, then yes, that could very well talk enough to make all that happening. I still think some of that proof is in the pudding. If we're talking about one spot, if we're talking about Saban's 40 team plan and there is one spot, that gets dicey. But I understand why you would say that. Money definitely talks. I mean, pretty much in general right now in college athletics. So thank you, Bennett. All right. Let's see. Oh, somebody deleting comment. I didn't delete any comment, MBM. So not sure what happened there. Just trying to get a little caught up here from you guys. Appreciate you being here. Chat seemed kind of lively tonight. I figured it would with the topic. That makes sense. SEC fans, feel free to light it up as much as you want. Make sure you subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com, or click the link in the description of this video. Join nearly 4,000 Big 12 fans who are. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for bearing with me. Starting a little bit late tonight, but we had fun, right? We'll keep monitoring this, man. The drama on the playoff is getting more interesting than I thought, and the idea of how the future of college football is going to be shaped is getting more interesting than I dreamed that it would. So all good things as far as content is concerned here on the channel. So take care. Appreciate you guys. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday and have a great rest of the week.